Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another one of our Friday community classes right here on the Green Art channel. This week, I'm very excited to be chatting with you about the magical path of herbal tea. And we will really be covering a lot of ground in a very short time today. So, what I want you to know is this is a massive topic. There are many approaches to it. I've done a bunch of different classes and videos. So, if this is something that's interesting to you, there is definitely a rabbit hole for you to fall down at your leisure when we're done today. So here's what we will be getting into. First, looking at the ritual of Tisane. Why is it so easy to ritualize tea, and why is tea such a beautiful ritual in and of itself for us to do this deeper plant spirit path work? I want to look at this concept of pouring transformation. Why is tea so inviting to the practice of magic, at least as I experience it? And then I'm going to share just 5 of probably an infinite number of magical ways that you can work with your everyday, any day tea drinking practice. So let's get started. First, the ritual of Tisane. Tea is a natural invitation towards ritual. A lot of the things that we do in a ritual context require a lot of planning, a lot of foresight, a lot of special implements and tools, sacred space, set and scene, all of that stuff. But tea can be simple. And even though it's very simple and it's working with things that we just have in our kitchen and things that, maybe we interact with on a daily basis, the tea kettle, your favorite mug, all of that, there is still an invitation to go deeply into the ritual because tea cannot be made without ritual, right? You can't just open the fridge and pull out a steaming hot cup of tea. It doesn't work that way. This process requires us to drop in, be mindful, take action, and do things in a way that really is already ritualized. We can just lean further into that ritualization and get more out of it, as we're going to discuss here in other slides. Another thing that is really beautiful about tea practice, Tisane practice, is that it brings us into direct contact with the herbs themselves. If we're doing capsules or tinctures or other kinds of extracts, of course the plants are there, but they are sealed away inside of a capsule, or they are extracted into a menstruum, a tincture, a base, whatever. We don't really get to come into direct organoleptic experience with them. And with tea, we do. We get to, hopefully, you will be working with whole leaf, loose, dried herbs, right? If you're working with tea bags, this is a little more difficult. It's still possible. If tea bags is all you have access to, please do that. But if you can work with whole dried herbs, then that's always better. We're able to see the colors. We're able to feel the textures. We are able to smell them. We're able to taste them. We're able to see what it's like to be in their presence. And so we come into direct contact via their physical form with the spirit of the plant. And that's very important in our work. This organoleptic handshake actually leads to activate the intuition. When we go out on plant spirit sits in nature with folks, and I say, look, just sit down with this tree and spend time tracing over them with your eyes, looking at all of their textures, the shapes, the patterns, the different colors. Maybe start feeling them with your fingers and have your eyes closed. Smell how the air is different around the plant than it is maybe 10 or 20 feet away from the plant. Feel what it's like to be in the canopy of the plant, held by that plant's energy, even though we're engaging our physical senses, right? Our organic senses. What ends up happening is the intuition gets activated and starts using all of the information coming in through those senses to deeply inform its own insight. And so this is why through the physical body in this work, people can have powerful intuitive hits, and why they can come one together. We tend to think about the cultivation of intuition as being this totally etheric thing. It happens up in the head, with withdrawing our senses, disconnecting ourselves from the world. But this is not a very animist approach. This is not a very ritualized approach to intuition, is it? what if we could step fully into our intuition while being fully embodied in our whole being, right? Physical senses and everything. I think that's really important. Um, Tea has its steps, right? We all know boil the water, crush up the herbs, pour the water, steep, wait, sip, right? There's all those steps. So it's really a very loose framework, which means that you can customize this however you want. There's room for you to bring in your own steps, your own flair, meaningful things from your own maybe cultural traditions or your own religious or spiritual traditions to deepen the practice. The framework of tea, the ritual framework of tea is very simple. And I tend to just sit with tea as is, right? But there's room for more if you want more. And I think that's really important. And the last and potentially most important aspect of the ritual of Tisane, there's an invitation and sometimes a call and sometimes even a demand for us to be quiet, to be still, and to just listen, right? People instinctively drink their tea quietly. Everybody kind of quiets down, the body quiets down. I don't have to teach people how to sit tea. I just have to serve tea. And people get wrapped up in the presence of the plants in that format. And we quiet down, the mind gently starts to quiet, the body relaxes, the senses are sharp and engaged, but not demanding. And in this space, we can listen from everywhere. We're able to listen to the plants. How do they sound? How do they feel in this space? How do they feel? What do they do when they move through my body with each sip? What comes up for me? What comes up in my mind, my memories, my emotions, right? This is active listening, and it's one of the ways that plants communicate with us. So, even through dried herbs in a warm cup of tea, we can actually have deep and profound plant spirit communications, which to me is quite impressive. So I want to talk about pouring transformation because that's what magic is, right? It's taking things that are in a current state, maybe a state of disease, disharmony, displeasure, and moving them, transforming them into something different, something that is healthy, something that is well, something that is beautiful, something that is fitting together in a more pleasing way, right? And so this whole process is about moving through the steps of tea, moving through the ritual of tea, and ultimately pouring out of the teapot transformative power, right? With the help of our plant allies, of course. So, what we have to really consider is what is happening now that we want to change? What's going on? Is it a health thing? Is it a relationship thing? Is it a mindset thing? Is it the direction that your path seems to be going that you are unhappy with? What is happening now? How is the energy manifesting? How are things being invested in this moment? And how do you want things to look then, right? In the future? What do you want things, how do you want to course correct? How do you want to move things or nudge things into a deeper state of harmony for you? This is something we should contemplate as part of the intuition and the intent of tea. Stepping into tea ritual with a clear intent of what it is we're trying to co create with our herbal allies. Remembering that when we sit down for ritual, especially, one of the reasons why ritual is so important is because ritual is so powerful. It changes us internally and it also creates change externally. And not very many things do both, right? So we have to be aware that when we step to tea ritual with intent, and the ritual itself is empowered and it's beautiful, and the plant spirit allies are there with us, we will create ripples on the surface of the well of weird. We will change the direction things are going. Because we change things in this moment, because we draw tea into this moment, because we draw our plant spirit allies into this moment, the ground upon which the future grows is a different kind of ground now. We're not just growing things out of the same old pattern that we've been working, right? The branch isn't coming out of the same place that it has been. Now we are making an adjustment. Now we're moving in a direction that's different. Now we're facing the sun, okay? And plants teach us this all the time. They show us that we need to change, that we need to adjust and course correct. All you need to do is look at any tree. Follow any branch from the trunk follow a branch into its various twigs and smaller and smaller and smaller, and you will see them adjust all kinds of different directions, now going this way, now going this way, now going up, now going down, now going back up again. This is the plant growing in new directions, seeking out light, seeking out harmony, seeking out beauty, recognizing that the direction things are going now isn't working, making a choice to change them in the future, making new ripples on the pond. Very important. Also, this pouring process gives us a moment to reflect on what's possible, cultivate a little bit of hope, maybe look into your tea bowl, your tea mug, and see the image of yourself reflected on that liquid. See yourself reflected as you would like to be, as you would like things to move, being in the space where you are trying to be, as you're working, actively working towards, right? This is important. It's co-creative, so we need to do our thing as well. And there's also an aspect of all of this that is said and seen. I really think that the ritual of tea sets us up for success. It creates shifts in our mind. It creates more sense of hope in what's possible. It changes the way the pond is rippling. It's doing all of these little things, and these little things all add up to something greater than the sum of their parts, which is truly magical. And suddenly, the set and scene from which we are operating allows us to create a much better future for ourselves, much more powerful and much more aligned. So don't overlook how deep tea goes. I know I talk about the ritual of tea a lot, and it's because it's a super important part of my practice personally. It's a big part of how the plants have taught me over the years. And it's also a big part of how I work with clients here in the clinic, right? We just drink tea sometimes. It's okay. So let's talk about 5 ways of tea magic, 5 different ways that tea can be a magical process. And the first, I always want to start with kinship, relationship, and reciprocity. As I mentioned earlier, drinking tisane, drinking an herbal tea, brings us into direct contact with the plant via their physical form. So if you are having a nice cup of chamomile tea, there is no reason that you cannot come into direct and immediate contact with the spirit of chamomile through your ritual of tea drinking. You don't have to be sitting with the plant as they grow out in your garden. You don't have to venture into some wild place and find the plant growing in the wild in order to communicate with them. You can communicate with them through their physical form, through their gift of dried herb, if your mind is right and if your heart is right. And tea tends to bring us into the right spaces. So if you want to connect with various plants, if you want to learn directly from them, if you want to be apprentice to their wisdom, tea is a fully fledged and totally powerful way to do that. A beautiful and simple ritual that all of us can do. The next part is the emerald mirror. This is one that's not so much fun for people, but it's very transformative. And that is that when we sit quietly and when we sit in stillness and we sip our tea, we're working usually with one herb at a time, right? Drinking that tea, smelling them, tasting them, seeing how they show up for us in that moment. We're also sort of confronted with ourselves, right? It's in these quiet moments where we become very aware of what's really happening in the mind, what our inner voice is really saying, what programs are really running, what patterns are really coming up, what that self-talk really looks like. And sometimes it's kind of rough to see that. Sometimes it's kind of rough to see the way that we talk to ourselves, to see the kind of space that we hold about ourselves. Similarly with the physical body, right? When we sit down and still, suddenly all the aches show up, and the itch and the twitch and the discomfort and the need to be stimulated and the need for more dopamine. And we're in this space where we have to go, how do I feel about that? What does that mean for me? Does that feel aligned to my values? Do I want to be the kind of person that cannot sit quietly and in stillness without being in a bunch of discomfort, without feeling anxious or like I'm missing out on something? And then we work through that, right? So the plants will always hold up what we call the emerald mirror. They'll always hold a mirror up so that we can see ourselves in new ways. We can see ourselves maybe with a little bigger perspective than we generally do. And the beauty about having the mirror held up by the plants, being called out even by the plants, is they rush in with medicine, right? They don't just hold the mirror up and let us see where maybe some work is needed. They also then follow up with the remedy for the work that is needed. They're there to support us to actually fix the thing that we don't like. They're actually there to bring us harmony where there's disharmony. So it's not like we're called out and left out, right? We're actually called out and then called in by the plants. And this is a really distinctive part of working with spiritual herbal medicine. Verdant allies, drinking tea is a really beautiful way to feel connected, to become more aware of your part ofness. The plants will always affirm for us that we belong here, that we're where we're supposed to be, that we're part of all of this, that we are as much part of nature as mountain, river, windstorm, tree, bear. They'll always affirm that for us. And in that affirming, what will happen inevitably for most people who do this work is that we'll start to feel close to the plants. We'll start to feel love for them and love from them. We'll start to feel as though they become our allies, that we are in kinship with them, that there is a closeness there, that even though we're very radically different kinds of person, that somehow we've forged these relationships of wisdom, guidance, and protection with these incredibly generous beings. And to me, when people feel like they live in a world with all kinds of different allies, suddenly we start feeling safe. We start feeling seen. We start feeling accepted and affirmed for who we are. And we start feeling like we belong here, right? That it's okay that we're here, that our trials and our tribulations are witnessed, and that they're part of our journey. And it doesn't mean that we're not wanted or that the world is rejecting us. It just means we're going through what we're going through, right? And that our allies are there to uh, generously walk us through those things with compassion and patience. We then have virtuous sipping. And this is something I work with a lot in a clinical setting where the plants over time have taught us various things about themselves, how they embody things like courage or gentleness or softening or releasing guilt or forgiving others, or sort of working on our relationship with having plenty, having enough. And these virtues that the plants carry, sometimes they carry the virtues better than we do. And sometimes they have virtues that we don't have at all, right? Sometimes we're going through a thing in our life and we're feeling like we don't have very much courage, like we can't really step up to things the way that we want to, or with the kind of power or the kind of sovereignty that we want. And so we think, what can I do about this? Who among my plant allies is exemplary of this medicine of courage, right? And then we can go sit with that plant and say, plant, please, share this with me. Let me move it through. Let me pour this liquid courage into my body in the form of tea and embody it. Teach me how to be more like you. Teach me how to hold this virtue that maybe I'm feeling I'm lacking right now. Maybe something I've lacked forever. And I'm finally seeing that, right? The plants held the mirror up. You're realizing, oh, I've never really had that, but I'd like to, right? Collect all the tools. It's totally fine. So we can sip into various virtues, various blessings of particular plants, especially when those plants have taught us the virtues directly. It's okay if you've read about them in a book, right? Somebody else shared their experience and said, I have found that chamomile brings me this gift, or I have found that this particular plant embodies this power or this virtue. Um, if you need to start there, totally fine, as long as the source is trustworthy. But all the better if you've sat with a plant and they've shared something with you, and then you can circle back to that later when you need it, right? Or someone else you know needs it. Last but not least, we have drinking into the disharmony. And this is a very powerful aspect of healing work in the plant spirit path as I practice it here in the clinic, as I practice it individually, as I teach it. And that is, tea is based in the element of water. Water is the universal solvent. When you go out in nature and watch what water does, it flows downward, trickling between rocks and pebbles, getting down into nooks and crannies. Water will get into spaces where other elements cannot get. Water will flow into areas where other beings cannot flow. And so when we drink tea, we can understand the power of water and why water is such an important vessel for plant spirits. But we also can understand that this tea can flow into wherever we need it to go. We can literally drink the tea into the part of our life where there's issue, into the part of our body, the organ, the process, the function, the disharmony, into the part of our mind, our patterns, belief systems, experiences, into our relationships, into the future, into the past, into our ancestry, into the world, right? Water will flow anywhere. Anywhere where it's given course, it will flow. And we give course, of course, through invocation, through Galdor and charm, through prayer and petition to the plant spirits, through having right headspace and right heart space in this work. So tea allows us to drink to the disharmony, like that we literally drink the medicine into the place where we're asking it to go. Not literally, but in this ritual context, in this visionary context of working with the medicine. So this also reminds us that the plants are in no way limited to how they can help us, to what areas of life they can help us, to how they can bring their wisdom and virtues. Their medicine does not stop at our skin. It does not stop at physical only processes. It can move anywhere we channel it, anywhere we invite it. And that's a very powerful part of this work. So I think for me, those 5 ways of tea magic are 5 of my favorite. There's many, many, many more that we talk about in other classes, but hopefully that gives you a little look into just how deeply the simple practice of drinking tea can go. So with that, we're going to wrap up this week's class. Now, if you want to learn more about the plant spirit path, this is working deeply with plants spirit to spirit for healing, magic, harmony, a bona fide tradition of animist ritual. Here are a couple of resources for you. You can head over to my website, thegreenart.com, to see upcoming events, classes, and courses. And of course, we have our very vibrant Patreon group, where for a small monthly contribution, you can get access to all of my advanced content, including our monthly community plant spirit journeys and really amazing people to connect with. So I hope to see you over there. I'll put details to everything down in the video info below, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Take care.